Hello and welcome to the No Nay Never podcast. And for those of you who don't know me, it's George Poole, regular panelist and sometimes standing host. And for this particular summer special, I will be your host for tonight's or this morning's or this afternoon's proceedings, whichever time you're listening to. And it's a very special podcast today because it's one of our book specials. We don't do these too often, but every time there's a new book to add to the archives about Burnley Football Club, we always try and do a special. And this one is particularly interesting to me because it's a fiction book, but with elements of non-fiction weaved in as well, which I guess we'll come to in the episode. But so the focus of today's episode is a new book that was released on the 28th of July. So as we're recording this a little over a week ago, by a local author, Evan Baldock. And it's called The Claret Pals. So for those of you who are on video on YouTube, you'll be able to see me holding up the book now. And for those of you who are on audio, you'll no doubt be able to find this book in all of your favourite booksellers. And I know it's particularly available directly from the Book Guild. Now, The Claret Pals, for those of you who don't know, was released a week ago, and I will just set up the meeting tonight with reading the blurb. I'll give you an understanding of what this book's about, and we're going to be speaking directly to the author, Evan, and also to Ian, who is a big Burnley fan. Some of you may know him on Twitter. He goes by Proudville Clarets, along with another of our distinguished Burnley fans. And we'll be speaking to both characters, but first let me read you the blurb of the Claret Pals. So the Claret Pals are just an ordinary group of Burnley FC supporters who meet up at a pub before every away fixture to eat, drink and sing raucous football songs. However, a series of sickeningly gruesome murders begins occurring close to the pubs they're meeting in, and the killer is leaving clues seemingly trying to frame the group. With the evidence piling up, the police begin looking closely at the Claret Pals, assuming that the killer must be one of them. Members of the group decide to take matters into their own hands. With time running out, they desperately begin piecing together a puzzle that becomes more complicated. They need to act swiftly because, unknown to them, the killer has shifted their sights, and the Claret Pals are in the centre of the crosshairs. Will they solve the puzzle and prevent the killer striking against them? Or is it already too late? Now, that is a blurb for the Claret Pals. I was very lucky to receive an advance copy of this from Evan, and I have finished the book. It took me 2 megabus journeys to finish this, such was it. It was so gripping. For those of you who know me, megabus journeys are quite a frequent occasion, and to have a new book to satisfy around a 5-hour journey makes all the world a difference. So, Evan, I guess my first thought is to welcome you to the No Never podcast and to say thank you, really, for brightening up to what would ordinarily be miserable megabus journeys. Evan, welcome to the
no
podcast.
problem at all. Thoroughly enjoyed writing it, and it was thanks to the group that they really do exist. This group, and I've based the characters in the book on people who are actually part of that group that I met, and they've welcomed me into the group, myself and my wife, over the past few years. So it was their idea. So I've got to thank them a lot. They came up with the idea of the book, and it seems to have worked well.
Yeah, I did notice when I was just having a flick through again today that you wrote at the start of the book, to the real Claret Pals, you know who you are. Thanks for the inspiration. And I guess that leads us kindly on to welcoming Ian to the podcast tonight. Ian, introduce yourself, and I guess what is your role here? You're one of the pals, are you not?
I'm one of the pals. I feel an imposter. Obviously, it was all Evan's hard work. All I did was drink beer and inspire him.
So for our listeners, Ian, otherwise known Ian Horsfall, to give you your full legal name, is also as well as being part of the Claret Pals. He's actually a board member of the Clarets Trust. Some of you may know I'm the chairman of the Clarets Trust. So nice to get you onto the No Nay Never podcast, Ian. And
it's really nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and Evan, I guess I've already made my first mistake of the night by calling you a local author. I detect a twang in your accent there. Give us a bit of your background before I read the official background given by the Book Guild.
I was born in Kent, and I've grown up in Kent. I met my wife, Ginny, about 20 years ago. And the first thing I learnt about her was that she was Burnley mad, absolutely crazy on Burnley Football Club. At the time, I was following rugby. I was a season ticket holder at Wasps. They were playing over in High Wycombe, and I used to go and watch Wasps play rugby. Ginny started insisting that we go to football and watching Burnley, and she's turned me into a Burnley nut, rather like herself. And we do about 3 or 4 games, sometimes 5 at the Turf every season, and we do about a dozen or up to about 15 games in the south of England and the Midlands, away games. So that's how I started meeting up this group, said, well, come and have a drink with us and stand with us. And, and slowly but surely we got incorporated into the group. And yeah, it's been great. It's been great. So that's why you've got a soft southerner following Burnley all around the country.
Fantastic. And I guess to satisfy our listeners and give the full comprehensive background, I will read from the Book Guild, who wrote your author profile. Evan Baldock left the Metropolitan Police in 2011 after 30 years service. And for several years, Evan helped run the Soho unit in London's West End, specialising in combating drug dealing. After retiring from the police, and this piqued my interest, Evan opened the UK's first vegetarian sweet shop, which he sold in 2016 and retired, taking up writing in January 2019. So before the Claret Pals, before we get onto the book, this vegetarian sweet shop, as a vegetarian myself, please indulge us.
I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian since I was 12. So that's 56 years now. And yeah, when I left the police, I got my lump sum, when I retired, and I thought, what should I do? Don't know what to do with the rest of my life. So I decided to open an old-fashioned sweet shop. So this shop had, I don't know, I think it was 270 jars of all the old-fashioned sweets, etc. And because of being a vegetarian myself, a lot of sweets have got, gelatin and that sort of stuff in. So yeah, it became the only shop in the UK that was entirely vegetarian at the time. I think more have copied now, but at the time it was the only one.
Wow. Yeah, as a vegetarian myself, I know the struggle of the sweets with gelatin, etc. And I'm a big cyclist as well, and Haribo's used to be a cyclist's best friend before I turned vegetarian, then realised they're out the window these days. So, fascinating. And I guess the Claret Pals then, it says you started writing in January 2019. At what point?
Can I stop you on that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The only thing is that I'll go back. In 2000, I was on the Soho unit in London. We were doing an operation targeting drug dealers in the West End called Project Lilac, which was a government-funded project. And we were working with all sorts of agencies, drug treatment workers, needle exchange, housing, all this sort of stuff, trying to get people off drugs, and into a better way of life. And one of the people that I met there was a woman called Edwina McPherson, and she was the boss of the neighbourhood watch scheme in St Giles and Covent Garden, which bordered Soho. Now, you might not know the name, but she's the mother of Suggs, the lead singer of Madness.
Yeah, I've seen Madness.
And it's his mum, and I became quite good friends with her. She was an old lady at the time, but I became quite good friends with her. I used to have a coffee around her house and that. And she said to me, why does no one ever write a story about an old lady like me? I won't use the language that she uses because she used to swear a lot. But she said, why does no one write a book with an old lady like me who's decided they're going to be, they're going to wipe out the scum on the street, so to speak. And she asked me if I would have a go at writing it. And I said, well, I've never written a word in my life. I've got a really low grade English O level. I'm hopeless at English. And so she said, no, go on. I want you to try and write this book. So that I actually started writing my first book in 2000.
Wow.
Because she gave me the idea. And cut a long story short, my marriage at the time started falling apart, and I'd written about half the book, but I stopped writing. And then years later, Ginny, my current wife, the Burnley fan, she saw on Google that Edwina McPherson, Suggs's mum, had died. And so she said to me, that book you've got on a memory pen, I think you should finish that in her memory. So I finished it in her memory.
Yeah.
And that's what got me, that was in 2019. And that's what got me now writing. I've got several books published thanks to Suggs's mum, funnily enough.
Wow, that's amazing. Is that book available online?
Yeah, it's my first ever book. It was called Bang Bang You're Dead. It wasn't my title. The title that I wanted to use was Payback, but the publishers told me that there were 3 books out called Payback at that time, and they didn't want another one, so they changed it to Bang Bang You're Dead. And they're all available. All of my books are available on Amazon, and that started my career really. But that was thanks to Suggs's mum, and yeah, it's the biggest seller by far. By far, it's sold more than all my other books put together. It's very, very popular. So it's good.
Well, wait till this podcast goes out. We might have a new contender. Let's not write the script on that.
I'm fairly certain that the Claret Pals is going to be my biggest seller eventually.
Wow.
There we are. And
I'm fairly certain.
Well, I guess I've given the blurb on the Claret Pals right at the beginning of this episode. I guess we should throw to you, Evan. And how would you summarize this book if you were to just go up to a random person on the street and say, "I've written this book. Would you like to buy it?" What's it about? And we're obviously, without spoiling, what are we in for here for the listeners?
Right. It's about a group of people. It's about friendship, really. It's about a group of Burnley fans who are really good friends, and they meet up at away games and they have a laugh and they sing songs, and just they don't misbehave. None of them misbehave. And the thing about this group is they're all different ages. You've got some who are fairly young, and some like me and Ginny who are quite old, and 1 or 2 others who are quite old. And it's about how this group of fans start. I don't want to spoil the book, but things start happening around the area where they're drinking. So they're every time they go to an away match, something happens that points towards, hints are given by the killer that indicates that the killer is one of the Claret Pals. And so it's about friendship. It's about having a good day out at the football. But the other thing that I like about it is it's a thriller. It's a crime thriller. It's a murder mystery. And I think it captures people from all sides. So you've got people that like the football experience, and a lot of fans that have done reviews already relate particularly to the football experience. They don't really talk much about the crime and about what's going on. They enjoy the fact that they're reading about Burnley and they're reading about areas around Burnley. So a lot of the action takes place in and around Burnley, especially towards the end of the book. And I think it will appeal to not just Burnley fans. I think it will appeal to football fans of all types who enjoy crime thrillers.
Yeah, I think that's a very good summary. And as the listeners will know on the No Nay Never podcast, we don't have a particular script, but what you've just said has teed up really a good way for me to. I'll do a little reading from my favourite passage in the book, and I guess it's my favourite passage because for me it summarises in this 30 seconds of writing what the book is about for me, and I guess what a lot of the listeners and hopefully turn into readers, if they haven't already, will take from the book, which is, as you mentioned, Evan, is the feeling of we've got the plot of the crime thriller going on in the background, but what is coming through and bursting from the page for me is the love of football, and obviously for us three and for the No Nay Never podcast listeners, it's the love of Burnley. And you almost have this sort of running theme throughout the book of a sort of a push and pull of the love of Burnley, but then the incredulity of what is happening to these characters whilst they're just trying to enjoy a season of hopefully promotion football. And for me, this passage halfway through the book perfectly summarises that push and pull. So I'll do a little reading and get your guys' thoughts on that being my favourite passage. And I'll take out the character's name, not to spoil anything, but we've got a character here who is getting arrested by the police, and he's about to be taken in for questioning, and he's asked to provide information on a supposed assailant. So the police officer, it'd probably be only a 20-second reading because I don't want to spoil anything too much, but the police officer took hold of his left arm to persuade him to keep moving. The character in question turned to her, concern written all over his face. Hang on a minute, how long will all this take? To which the police officer responds, as long as it takes, Mr. X, and you'll forgive me for using Mr. X, we've got a number of questions we want answered. To which the character who's being arrested then replies, but Burnley are at home tonight. We've got Preston at the turf. It's a local derby. I can't miss that. And that is how that chapter 44 concludes. So you have this incredible sequence of events where this character's being arrested, but the sort of at the forefront of his mind is, hang on, how long is this questioning going to take? Because we're playing Preston at home tonight. And for me, that summarizes the sort of the passion for Burnley that comes out through the book. Forgive me for using the word again, but the incredulity of what is happening to these characters, but also the fact that there is something serious, there's a serious matter underlying the crime thriller aspect, and that's why these characters being arrested. So I guess before going back to you, Evan, Ian, I'll introduce you for a proper question. When you first read this book as I guess an inspiration, definitely as an inspiration, as part of the Claret Pals in real life, what were the themes that came through to you most? And do you share in finding passages like that just absolutely fantastic entertainment?
So, yeah, I do, and I'm going to continue really with what Evan said about how it is about us as a bunch of pals, and I found there were a number of occasions where I laughed out loud, not at something that was supposed to be funny, but at something that was just so normal, so typical. I mean, and all the instances I can think of, I can't really say because, as we keep saying, I don't want to spoil the story. But
I've got one instance that I'll interrupt and give you, and it's character X and Y. This is the start of chapter 65. Character X and Y hated international breaks, as indeed every right-minded football fan. It just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I'm sure that was a moment that I did laugh out loud. Absolutely. And Evan and I spoke like 2 minutes after I finished reading it, and that was the topic, wasn't it? We just said these. It was so realistic, and I don't think I realised how many of those scenes in pubs, etc., were actually based on fact. I don't give it when you mentioned to me the fact that we always sit out, regardless of, as long as it's raining, we're outside the pub. That's a fact. And you're right. We move tables around so there's enough tables for us all. We do that, don't we? It just is what we do. And you said, one of those instances was absolutely a fact. So just so unbelievably realistic, but not surprisingly, because it is real. It's us in a pub.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Claret Pals, and I guess it tees up a good question to Evan of I guess the backstory of you joining the Pals away from the book. When did you first bump into Ian and the rabble, and how did they welcome you into the fold, and how's the sort of friendship gone from there?
Blimey, I think the first time I met with the group properly and we were really welcomed in was, I think it was Aston Villa away, and we were in a horrible marquee type thing at the back of a pub. I can't remember the name of the pub now.
I
can't remember the name of the Witten Arms. The
Witten Arms.
The Witten Arms, and we were in the back of the pub, and it was disgusting. I mean, it was the only away pub that you were allowed into, and the Villa fans all had
you had to pay a fiver to get in.
Sorry?
You had to pay a fiver to get into that disgusting pub.
And you had to pay to get in. And this group of people sort of said, "Oh, come and join with us. Come and sit, come and talk with us." And And then we joined them, and then a couple of songs went up, and then we all started singing, and then we had photographs done holding up flags and, you know, Burnley scarves and things like that. And then I realised after a few matches that, you know, we met the group again and again. This happened every match. Every match they meet up, always outside a pub, always in a pub, even in the winter, always in the pub garden. And one member of the group, who I won't name, who's a lady, she always, I think she stopped it now, not quite so much. She always says, right, drink your shots, tray of shots, I'll go and get a tray. And she always has it, and everybody has a toast and a tray of shots. And yeah, and it was just great, singing songs, drinking, friends chatting and laughing. And slowly but surely, we were just more and more incorporated into the group. And yeah, lovely. I mean, you know, and what a great set of fans Burnley fans are. And that's what I try to put over more and more and more in the book, so that people who aren't Burnley fans, who might read the book, will maybe look at Burnley fans in a different way and think what a nice bunch they are. That's what I'm hoping.
I did already know Ginny before that. That wasn't the first time I'd met Ginny.
Oh, wasn't it?
No, I think I met her at Chelsea. I think that's how we got introduced to you. We always knew your wife.
Oh yeah, maybe, but I'm talking about when we were incorporated with the group.
Yeah,
and I
sure.
remember. Sadly, she's dead now, but Simon's wife.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember her name now. Is it Janie?
Gail.
Gailey. And Gailey, she really welcomed us in, etc.
She did.
And yeah, that's right. We probably did meet you before that, but I'm talking about when we got in together with the whole group. Really good, good.
That camaraderie definitely comes out through so many moments of the book. Ian, I guess the backstory for the Claret Pals for you will go further back than Evans, because you are probably one of the originators, I guess. I guess for Burnley fans who are listening, the Claret Pals are you're not a formal group, but you know, just a friendship group. As many fans will have their friendship groups that go on away games and all meet up in the similar pubs. Yours being always seems to be the outside of pubs, as Devon noted. But yeah, give us an introduction to, I guess, some of the people in the group, not necessarily people in the book, but in the group, and how it all came about that you all started going to the football together.
So there's no one starting point, and it's fair to say it's probably about, because I was living in the Middle East. It kind of all started when I came back in 2015. I'd been going to Burnley matches all my life, and there are still people I meet from way back and from school days. But that was when it really kicked off, and there was no one moment it kicked off. We just have and it still happens. Most times we meet in a pub, somebody else gets added anyway. You know, it just grows. And I like what you said there, Evan, about the mix of age group. That's always something I felt quite proud about. We're very inclusive. You know, nobody's left out at all. That does make us quite an interesting group. It gradually grew from about 2015, 2016. There was no one moment at all, and I guess social media kind of changed the way you meet up. You know, suddenly it was socially acceptable to change WhatsApp, numbers and start texting. And you can imagine there's a WhatsApp group of 54 people, I think, in it, something like that. And you know, most people join and stick around. Sure, some have gone, I don't want this. I don't want texts about Burnley every 10 seconds of my life. but most stick around, which is really, really nice.
Excellent. Yeah, I think there'll probably be many listeners who have links to the group and to you guys.
No doubt at all. Yeah.
And we'll
what I find interesting with the group is that at some matches there's only 8 or 10. There's only 8 or 10 of us. At other matches, I think it was Brentford away, we were in a pub near the railway station. There wasn't an outside, but there was like a marquee thing at the back where we were, or a conservatory type place at the back of the pub. and there must have been about 30 or 40 of us, you know, all faces that you knew as part of the group, because as Ian says, people drift in and drift out, you know, and there are 54 members on the WhatsApp group. And I'm not on the WhatsApp group, so it's 55. My wife's on it, but she deals with all those messages.
She does.
At what point did you decide this is a book that I want to tackle, Evan? At what point did you think, yeah, I'm gonna stray into the Burnley territory and write a book about, I guess, first-hand experience? Without, I'm not suggesting your first-hand experience is from the crime thriller aspect, but yeah.
I suppose it was about 18 months ago. People mentioned it. Ian certainly mentioned it. You know, would be a good idea to have. How about a book? You know, with a group like ours involved. I don't think anyone actually said put us in it, but the idea came to fruition because people like Ian, Becky, probably Joe, Ryan. I think Ryan was quite a big pusher of it. He really liked the idea of the book being written about a group like them, or like the Claret Pals. And yeah, about 18 months ago, I would think, I started thinking seriously about ideas for it, and I couldn't come up with an idea. And funnily enough, one of the main things I wanted an unusual name for the protagonist in the book. And I'm not going to say what the name is, but I bumped into someone when I was walking the Camino in northern Spain, and this person had this name, and I thought, that's the name I want. And once I got that name, I started thinking of ideas of why this person might behave like they behave in the book, and why they might start implicating members of the Claret Pals. And yeah, it's worked very well. It's worked very well.
And did that process, I guess, after finding your protagonist's name, did that process unfold quite quickly? You mentioned 18 months ago. I was struck, obviously, as a Burnley fan, and I know the Burnley recent season. Throughout the book, I was very much like, it's sort of almost taking place through the company promotion season, if you were to put it into a context.
Yeah.
You've got your West Broms and the flow, and I'm thinking that it rings a bell. That flow of a season and a promotion season, it seems very much set in that campaign. So did it come out quite quickly, the writing of after you found the protagonist?
The writing probably took about 9 months. I started writing, I think, in about the May or something like that, and so it was quite natural for me to write about a championship season.
Yeah.
So obviously, when they got promoted and the book was coming out, I thought, oh blimey, you know, this isn't gonna fit well. But as it turns out, unfortunately, Burnley got relegated again, and so a lot of it is going to fit quite well. Obviously, Rotherham went down, so that doesn't suit, but it doesn't really matter too much. The book itself is basically about friendship and about, I'm trying to think of the best word, getting over adversity or overcoming adversity, because in the book, 2 or 3 of the characters are in quite serious shtuck at long periods in the book, and yeah, it's their attempts to overcome it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I read the book in quite a short space of time, because I was thinking I want to find out what happened, and personally knowing, you know, some of the pals in question, and I placed them in the book, I'm thinking, no, this person's really in trouble right now. And I remember, actually, it was a few weeks ago, and it was between the 2 megabus journeys. So I'd got 1 megabus home up north, and I'd gone out drinking for one of the England games, and I bumped into John, who is a member of the Claret Pals in real life, John Calvert, half of the Proudsville Clarets, for those of you on Twitter. And I remember bumping into him and saying, "Don't tell me anything about the book. I am halfway through it, I don't want to know anything. I know there is there is the cliffhanger I'm on page 280 or whatever it was, and saving it. And I think obviously many people who know and will be able to find the real people in the characters will have that similar connection. And Ian, when you first read it, I I assume you were immediately able to place yourself. But how did
Yeah.
it feel? How did it feel reading a book where obviously it's not based on real life, but it's characters inspired by real people? How did it feel putting that into the reading experience?
That was quite surreal. You know, the things that Evan had caught on about me. You know, there are a number of things I say, and I think, yeah, that's the sort of thing I say. That's right.
It
You
is.
know?
It captures you very well.
Yeah, emotional and hate Weatherspoons. You know.
My
So-
wife actually, when she read the first few chapters, she looked over across at me because she was sat on a chair in the lounge. She looked across to me and she said, "You've absolutely nailed Ian," she said.
Yeah.
Absolutely nailed him, which I thought was a nice compliment.
It was absolutely. So yeah, I can only say surreal and really interesting. Actually, the phone call we had as soon as I'd finished it, that was, you know, how he'd caught me and his perception of me. Really interesting. I can't think of another word. I just yeah, really surreal.
Evan,
I was actually very worried about offending people
Yeah,
because
you were. I remember that. Yeah.
I wrote things about Ian, John, Joe, and
Joe's
probably in
nickname.
particular
Joe's nickname isn't complimentary.
Becky, and in particular Ryan,
Right.
who I thought, oh dear. I phoned Ryan up and I said, look, this book's, you know, I gave him a rough idea of what happens to him in the book, but I didn't spoil it at all. He went, oh, and he's now read it and he sent me a lovely message saying, you know, really good. And he's going to he's given his copy to his mum and dad to read. And, you know, so it's, yeah, very pleasing, very pleasing.
that was it. You probably answered my question there, but I was going to ask, at what point did you let the guys know you'd sort of finished the book? How involved were they in knowing that the process was happening after that initial inspiration to do it?
Oh, they were fairly involved all the way along. I would say to them, I'm 40,000 words in, or I'm 60,000 words in, and you know, I'm now getting it edited. They were fairly well informed all the way along as to what stage I was at, and so they knew it was coming. And in fact, one or two of them, I would say, badgered me quite a lot to say, "Well, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? When can we get our copies?" You know, and they obviously, most people who aren't in the publishing business don't realise it's a very, very, it's like wading through treacle. It's a very slow process.
Yeah,
and you know, something that the book was completed, finished, contracts were signed in December.
Yeah,
it doesn't come out until July. You know, it's very, very slow. So but they were aware of it all the way along. I will say, I'd like to say one or two thank yous while I'm on here.
absolutely. The floor is yours.
Alison at the Crooked Billet, who's been a big supporter of it, and she's got a copy. I'd like to thank her, and I know that she said she was going to. I think she said she was going to take a photo of the book or something and stick it on posters and with an Amazon link telling people to buy it in the pub. And there's Justine at the Royal Dyche. Justine's been probably the biggest supporter of all. She's been fantastic. She's arranged a book signing, which I'm doing up there on the Leeds away game. So I think it's the 14th of. So I'm going to be signing books after the game. So she said there'll be a big crowd in because it's Leeds away. And then I'm doing a book signing after the game. And she also has passed on my details to one or two other people, I think, at the club. And one other woman is Georgia Hargreaves at the club at the supporters liaison office, and she also has a copy. and she indicated, whether it will happen or not, because she needed to ask other people a bit higher up, that they might advertise it in the club program at home games.
Excellent.
So that would be fantastic. If that happened, that would be amazing. So, yeah, I mean, everyone's been really supportive about the book. Anyone who's read it, and actually, you know, there's only about 14 reviews on Amazon at the moment, but they're all very complimentary and they're all 5-star at the moment. So Burnley fans are enjoying it. I don't know what other fans will think when they read it, but Burnley fans are enjoying it.
I can answer that because I've persuaded friends of mine who are well, certainly 2 Newcastle supporters really enjoying it. A friend of mine, we've got a WhatsApp group for my university friends, and one of those guys supports. Believe it or not, I have got a Man United friend. He posted in that chat, really enjoying the book. You know, took it on holiday with him and enjoying a good pint and a good read message. So I can absolutely tell you that people from other clubs are enjoying it.
Yeah, I have actually. I've got a contact. I don't know how I got my details, but it was someone who isn't heavily involved with Leeds or very high up at Leeds, but they work at Leeds Football Club, and they actually said to me, "Would it be possible to write something similar, a book about Leeds?" And I thought, well, that's nice. That's nice that
They're not nice. We're nice people. It wouldn't work
I
if
know
they were
that,
Leeds.
but it's
Right?
nice that they asked the question. I know they're dirty Leeds.
Yeah, no, that won't work at all.
No, but they asked the question.
All the warmth of the book would be lost.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping that if this is a success, that I hope it will be, that I'll be writing. I'm already about 4,000 or 5,000 words into the next book about the Claret Pals, you know, I've been working with Justine, not working with Justine, but I've spoken to Justine about it because the Dyche is quite heavily involved. The Royal Dyche is quite heavily involved in the second book.
Excellent. That's a nice teaser for our listeners to have. I think I always think with books about Burnley, especially a fiction book, because a fiction book can, for me, that can go further afield in that, like we're saying here, people of other clubs will be able to really enjoy it. Whereas, you know, for all the fantastic non-fiction books about Burnley, sometimes it feels a bit, you know, only Burnley fans might possibly be interested. But I can imagine definitely going on holiday and how amazing it'd be to see someone, you know, with like this in their face reading the Claret Pals, and I'm thinking, there's a bird. Yeah, I was walking through Bath today, and to set the scene, Bath's a place where we had a group chat, a WhatsApp group of the Burnley supporters in Bath, and there was 3 of us throughout my time at university, the Bath Clarets, and for some unbeknownst reason, I was walking through town with this top on, and 5 yards in front of me, a guy stepped out of the barbers with a Wilson Audebert top on, and I was absolutely taken aback. So I can imagine having a similar thing, seeing someone in public reading about the Claret Pals. Evan, I would like to ask if you'd like to read one of your favourite passages from the book, and perhaps a note of why it's one of your favourite passages. It'd be nice to get it from the author's mouth.
Yeah, okay. I've got 2 or 3, but this is one that I really enjoyed writing. With only 90 minutes remaining before kickoff, the Royal Dyche pub was packed with fans excited about the upcoming match. For a few of the Claret Pals, it was the preferred drinking hole before matches. Others preferred the cricket club. What do you mean he's been nicked? Ian stood alongside Fat Joe in the rear garden of the pub. 3 other members of the Pals were standing in a huddle with them, all shocked by the news that John had been arrested. Ian was the only one who didn't live locally. The remainder of the Southern Clarets had given it a miss. They rarely travelled up to home matches from down south. I quite like that because it describes, and I'm sorry I've given a few of the names away, but it doesn't really matter because it doesn't spoil the flow of the book. I like that it describes at home games, inevitably the main group meet in the back garden of the Royal Dyche. I'd say that's fair, Ian, isn't it, on most games?
Pretty much always. Used to be the cricket club, but definitely Dyche nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, there are one or two who still drift over to the cricket club and prefer it, but the Dyche is definitely the preferred watering hole. And so something like that people want to discuss and want to get involved. I like that part of the book. I think that's quite good. I've got one other that I'd like to read.
Absolutely, yeah. And whilst you just identify the page, I'll say that sort of local sentiment throughout of you can pick the places throughout the book. It really for Burnley fans, and especially obviously for the No Nay Never podcast listeners, it's something you'll definitely pick up on. And yeah, I often spot and speak to Ian in the Dyche for 4 games. It's a place where you can bump into everyone. It's almost like the way I describe going to the Dyche is like when you go back home and go to a nightclub and all of a sudden it's everybody you've ever known's in there. That's how it feels when it's sort of everyone who's got links to Burnley is in there, and you get that sense of togetherness. Yeah.
This bit, funnily enough, that you mentioned, John and Ian hated international breaks. That's the bit that I've got as well, because I thought that describes them a treat. So basically, the bit I want to read is Ian was collected by John from Burnley Manchester Road Station. The journey to John's house in Barley took just 20 minutes. And after a quick cup of tea and a slice of coffee and walnut cake each, they set out to climb Pendle Hill. And I love that bit because I think for Burnley fans, Pendle Hill has got a special place in Burnley fans' hearts. And I've learnt that over the years of following Burnley. And as I say, when we go up to watch a match in Burnley, we only go 3 or 4 times a year, but we spend 3 or 4 days each time up there, and we climb Pendle Hill and things like that. And I know that so many of the places that I've managed to incorporate in the book hold special places in the hearts of Burnley fans. That's why I like that passage.
Yeah, no, that is terrific. I as someone who comes from Clitheroe and Barrow, so the other side of the hill, as we always say, I loved in the book when Ian and John in the book have to take stock of what's happening. So they decide, right, we're going for a walk up Pendle Hill. As naturally anybody in the area, if you're needing to think about anything, you need to clear your mind. Where are you going to go for a walk? Well, let's go up Pendle Hill. It's just, it's terrific. I remember when I was younger, going up to Pendle, and this is the thing: everyone who has a connection to the area will have these stories. I remember going up Pendle Hill, and it was like 6 inches of snow, and having days off school, snow days, and you'd go up Pendle Hill and ride down in your bobsleigh, or not your bobsleighs, on your, what do you call them, on
Sledge.
on your sledges. Yeah. Pendle Hill's it's sort of an indicator of the area so well. Ian, I do.
Yes.
I was going to ask you. You're not got into any trouble in real life, have you?
No, never. I'm far too good for that. Yeah. It was necessary for the story. Let's leave it at that. No, never. I'm goody two shoes, me.
Yeah, these characters are inspired by real people, but not entirely based on real people. I won't. I'm not going to read any more passages from the book, but I guess your point there, Evan, of saying there's that real local feel, which I think for someone who's from Kent, you've captured amazingly well. And yeah, on my notes for the episode, I jotted down a few pages where I was going to mention the mentions of the Dyche and all the local aspects that really give this book a lot of feeling, especially for Burnley fans. Yeah. I don't want this episode to go on too long, and I don't want to spoil anything that's in the book because I think our listeners will really love reading this. But I will throw the floor back to you, Evan, before we have just a general chat on Burnley and the upcoming season. Are there any things about the book that we've not discussed that you'd like to raise? And I guess, yeah, give us that hint of what's more to come from the Claret Pals, because this story's not finished, is it?
It's not, no. What I'm hoping to do in the second book is to use members of the Claret Pals and more of an investigation type situation. So things are going to happen completely different to the Claret Pals, but nearly all the action in this book is going to be in and around Burnley itself.
Nice.
So whereas the Claret Pals, as people who don't know, who haven't read it, a lot of the action takes place at various away grounds around the country when Burnley are playing away fixtures. It does move in towards Burnley at the last third of the book, but in the next book, which at the moment I've got a working title on it. I don't know whether I should say it or not, but it's called the Culvert Conspiracy at the moment. That might give you some idea where the heart of the story is going to be. And it's more about how can I say things without giving too much away? It's more about how the Burnley fans really do have to work together as a group, whereas in the Claret Pals, they do partly work together as a group, but it's more a small part of the group. Whereas in the Culvert Conspiracy, it's a broader thing for the group to deal with.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure those of us who've read it will be really looking forward to hearing more about that when details can emerge. But Evan, thank you very much. We're not going to end the episode there, but thank you very much for talking us through the Claret Pals. And
no problem.
Yeah, for our listeners who haven't read it yet, it's available online from all your favourite booksellers. And I know Book Guild Publishing in particular, who published the book. It's available.
Well, Amazon's probably the best place or the easiest place to get it from. It's just on Amazon, or just type in my name, Evan Baldock, and it'll come up on Amazon.
Well, from one championship season, in some ways, to another, let's spend 10 minutes talking about the upcoming campaign, because as we sit, we're 6 days out, and it's always nice to get different opinions on the No Nay Never podcast. I think our listeners have gotten used to myself, Tom, Rich debating week in, week out how good or bad about Weghorst is, and the like. So it'll be nice to hear your guys' opinions. We sit here with, for the listeners of the podcast, me and Evan are both wearing the championship winning shirt from a couple of years back, whereas Ian's gone for a more forward-thinking approach, some might say, of wearing the upcoming season shirt made by Castor with the monochrome badge for its suitors and detractors. You can count me in the detractor camp for that one. But yeah, Ian, I'll go to you first. We sit 6 days out from the season. I guess, what are your general hopes, expectations for the upcoming campaign? How are we set here on the Tuesday night, the 6th of August?
It's almost a cliche to say it, isn't it? But there's 10 clubs at least could get promoted, could be top 2 in the division. I think we are one of those 10. I think we'll be there or thereabouts in the playoffs. I'm not super confident, but then hey, I wasn't 2 seasons ago either, and look what we did. I think it's going to be tough. I think I am a bit. I can imagine if we do have a fantastically successful season, it'll be tainted a bit for me. Well, yeah, last season I thought we were going to be mid-table, and so do we really want that to happen again? In terms of signings, I don't know. I really can't tell yet. I haven't watched any of the warm-up matches, to be honest. I don't know what to expect. Looking forward to Luton on Monday and finding it all out.
Evan, do you strike a more optimistic or pessimistic tone than Ian?
Well, unbelievably, I agree with almost everything Ian said there. I think we'll be in the playoffs. I'm not certain we're going to make the top 2. I think he's done well to hang on to several of the players that I thought maybe sold or moved on. I think he's kept the nucleus of the team that was there at the end of last season. I know, it looks as though we're going to lose Burge and 1 or 2 others. But in the main, and goalkeepers, obviously, we've shifted a few, but in the main, I think he's held on well to the nucleus of the team and added well to it with that striker. I only saw him for a few minutes at the end of the Cadiz game. Was watching it on Claret Pals, and he looks quite handy. He looks quite lively, I thought. Looks as though we may be holding on to Brownhill as well, which will be a bonus in the Championship. I think the same as Ian, that probably in the playoffs, but I'm not convinced we'll make the top two. But hey, look what we did 2 seasons ago, and hopefully we'll do that again, but we'll see.
Yeah, I watched that Cadiz game as well, and I guess to your point, Evan, I was very much enthused by the nucleus of the team that still seems to be there. We've had the rumours today that Sander Berge is wanted by United. Fenerbahce have also been linked now. Wherever he may end up, it seems likely he might leave this summer. But that we started that pre-season game with Koleosho, Audebert, and Zarori all on the pitch behind Lyle Foster. For me, that's as formidable as a championship attacking lineup gets. We've never been able to see all 3 of them line up together behind Foster, obviously with Zarori having that Hull loan. So if we somehow manage to keep both Koleosho and Audebert, I think that's frightening for other teams. That's not to even mention you've got Zarori and Benson, who were obviously our catalyst for that season 2 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think I still don't understand why managers are bringing Benson on towards the end of a game rather than maybe bringing him on at half time. I understand that when he has been used at the start of games, opposition defenders tend to kick him, and they tend to kick him off the park if they can, and he ends up getting injured. And I can see why they're trying to protect him a little bit and bring him on when defenders are more tired towards the end of a game, and he rips them apart then. But I don't know. I think maybe they should give him more minutes than he's getting, Benson.
Yeah,
he'll get more time in the Championship. I feel confident of that. He was superb in the Championship.
He was,
and it makes the use or lack thereof of him in the Premier League a bit puzzling.
It's curious,
yeah, the Vincent Kompany saga, which has now been by now long since over. I guess it's been re-sparked in my mind because I don't know if either of you two saw it, but there was a trailer emerged for the new Mission to Burnley series.
Which I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so that'll be coming out on Friday. I believe it's available from about 2 a.m. on Sky Sports Football.
Right.
The trailer, Ian, have you seen it?
No, I haven't. No.
Right, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's only about 20 seconds long, and it was shared on Twitter earlier today, so you can definitely find it. It very much shows a bit of discord in the dressing room and a lot of shouting. Now it's obviously dramatized and cut together really well, but there's very much, it seems antagonistic between Kompany and Goodmanson, which I guess isn't too surprising given he left and then re-signed when Kompany departed. And there just seems to be a lot of unrest. There's a bit of back and forth with Lyle Foster in the dressing room and Jack Cork both raising the voices, and you're thinking it might unveil something. I think this series might shed a light on last season, which, even though it won't be nice to watch us getting beat every week again, I think it'll be interesting to see what went wrong and where. So I'd recommend watching the trailer just to, I guess,
something obviously went wrong. I will never understand why a team that walked the Championship like that was practically taken apart and a new team built when you get promoted. Why would you do that? I understand that some of the players were on loan and they had to go back, etc. But I just don't understand why he did what he did. But there we are.
I didn't understand why we had so many good centre halves in the Championship. Vincent Kompany should know how to coach centre halves, and honestly, I don't think one of them pushed on. I thought Ekdal and Bayer looked fantastic. Al-Dakhil looked adequate to me, and I don't think any of them pushed on from their Championship season.
No,
I never understood that.
we had no defensive structure, and that's the thing. You think from a centre half perspective, obviously it's cliche, but under Dyche, our defensive structure was second to none. And then when we went up last year, you just had a team that was a mess. And yeah, to your point, Evan, I think fans are a lot more forgiving if you've got a team that's performed heroics in the Championship. If you'd kept that nucleus of that team and you watch them getting beat every week, you'd have a bit more sympathy because you have got good memories. But when you've got a brand new team of people that have been brought in for big money, you're far less sympathetic, and I think that was another driving cause behind the sort of split from the disconnects between the fans and the club last season.
Yeah.
And
There was. I think there was a huge disconnect between the players and the fans at some stages last season. I think there was I was at the Turf. I think we went 4 times last season, and I was expecting great atmosphere at some home games, and it was
very flat.
It was pretty poor right from the off every game, and it's a shame. It's a shame after a great.
Yeah.
The Turf was rocking in the Championship season. And then it just, I don't know, there was a disconnect for some reason.
Yeah. So I'm part of me, well, not a large part of me is really looking forward to this season because I feel like we'll have that back, because even though, we might not only lose 3 games all season, but we'll be winning more games for a start, which helps. Don't get me wrong, it definitely helps. But I think Parker so far he seemed a lot more, I don't know, it's the wrong word, but touchable than Company. He seems a lot more grounded. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures of him with the fans after that friendly the other day, and I think it looks like about 50 Burnley fans that went, they all commented on social media afterwards saying that he stayed and talked to every single one of them and introduced himself and spent time with them. And I got the sense that wouldn't have happened under Company. I'm looking forward to this season, and I think I think there's a lot of people putting emphasis on Leeds and saying how good they are, but hey, look, no team's won any points yet, have they? They've all got to go to that pitch and prove themselves. So I'm fairly confident, but I'm an optimistic person. And before we do round off, I'm not going to let you both sit on the fence. I'm going to get an actual prediction from you both. And I'm going to go to Ian first, because you said, anywhere in the top 10, I can see us maybe in around the playoffs. What is your actual prediction? As of now, 6 days out from the start of the season, come the end of the year, where do you think we'll be? And I guess for a curveball, who do you think will be our standout performer throughout the season? Remember, last time it was probably Josh Cullen in the Championship. Yeah. He definitely won the Claret Pals Player of the Year, at least.
He did. I'll go 4th. And if we keep hold of Koleosho, I'll go him.
Do you think he's better than Audebert? That's the question. How do you think them two stack up? Because I think both of them are a cut above. And I remember when Koleosho got injured last season,
Wolves,
and I remember at the time being devastated and thinking, Audebert, really looking forward to seeing what he can do, but surely he can't do what Koleosho's done. And then he just went and flew, and he was fantastic. And
he did.
Watching that friendly the other night, Audebert just edged his performance to Koleosho. It made me think they're a lot closer match than I first anticipated.
I thought Koleosho was very, very exciting. I was absolutely gutted when he got injured. He was that player that you sharpen, take a breath. He was the player you wanted the ball to go to. I just think there's just a little bit more excitement about the guy. And
he's got that pace, hasn't he? He's got really
does. Really does. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
We saw that in the friendly the other night. There was just, I think within 90 seconds, Koleosho had knocked it past the player and ran onto the ball, and you blinked, you'd have missed him.
He is fast. And I think Foster's a perfect player for the Championship as well. I think Foster could have a very good season in the Championship.
You see that finish against Cadiz?
Yeah, cracking, wasn't it? Fantastic. Yeah.
Came out of nowhere, that.
Yeah.
Evan, the same question for you. Where do you think we'll finish if we had to nail down a position, and who will be our standout player this Championship season?
I was going to go 4th, but Ian got in there first. So I'll say 3rd. I'll go 1 up, and I'm going to throw a curve. I think Anas Sarori is going to have a great season. I think he'll stay with us.
Yeah.
I thought he played well in patches against. He had some flashes of his old self in Cadiz the other night.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm going to go Anas Sarori. I think he'll be top player. I'm not sure whether. I'm assuming Foster's going to get the nod as the main striker. I'm assuming he will. But the new guy, I can't remember his name. Is it Hortangi or something?
I think we settled on the pronunciation Houndtodgy.
Hortangi, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he looks pretty good from what I can see. So, but there again, it's one game. You know, let's see what he does after when he. I'm sure he'll get his chance in the first half dozen games. I'm sure he'll have a couple of chances. Yeah. And I think there may be a bit of a battle, which will be good for the club. There may be a bit of a battle for, you know, who is the striker.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I was also taken. He just seems to have a bit about him against Cadiz, which is definitely exciting. And I'm not gonna opt out. I'll also blame put my colours to the mast. I think we'll finish second. So automatic promotion. A part of me would really love to tip us to first, but I don't want to just be that guy who just is optimistic for the sake of being optimistic. So I'm going to say second, and I think the standout player will be Koleosho. I think I'm gonna go with Ian on that one, because for me, if either of Koleosho or Audebert were to be sold, I think because Koleosho had that long injury, I'd be tempted to say it'd be Audebert. So then, with us keeping Koleosho, I think he'd be frightening in the Championship, and I think he'll be a player to be reckoned with. I was very, very disappointed when we first got Parker. I thought, gosh, it's a bit.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
I remember it just being. I just sighed. But if you look at the managerial market that was there any more exciting options? I'm not sure. And he's got 2 promotions in 2 Championship seasons. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've got to back him, and we certainly will. I'm sure there'll be a great atmosphere at Luton next week. Are there any plans for any of the Claret Pals making the journey?
Yeah, well, myself and my wife are going. I know Ian's going.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who else is going. Do you know, Ian?
Tell you the truth, I don't. I'm sure there are 1 or 2 others, but no doubt the WhatsApp group will erupt with what pub we're meeting in soon enough.
Yeah, absolutely. In the next couple of days.
I'm expecting you all to be standing out with a stall outside the selling copies of the Claret Pals. There'll be no drinking happening. There'll be none of these shots. There'll be they should be selling books by the dozen. That's all I'll say.
Well, if anyone brings a copy, I'll sign it for them.
There you are.
There you go.
Got that. If anyone brings a copy of the Claret Pals to Luton, it will be signed by the author himself, Evan. And I guess on that note, it brings to a close today's podcast special. One of my favourite summer specials we've done. We did a quiz last night, folks, and would you believe based off the first year he turned professional, I guessed the name of Stanislas Varga. Do either of you remember him playing for Burnley? Because it was for 10 appearances in 2008. and somehow tonight's special has topped that in answer that I somehow plucked out of nowhere. So thank you both for coming on. Thank you very much, obviously, to Evan, who is the author of the Claret Pals. And thank you to Ian for providing a bit more context of having one of the Claret Pals in our midst. Is he the killer? You'll have to read on to find out. There's plenty to go out here. Evan, I'm going to give the last word to you because you are the author of this book. Do us one last sales pitch. I'm sure Burnley fans are eager to buy it, but one last pitch.
I think that Burnley fans will absolutely adore this book. It lives the whole match day experience. So whenever you're out on a match day, those of you that travel away with Burnley and those that go to home games, you'll know what it's like when you meet up with a group of fans. You have a great time, you have a drink, you have a laugh, you have a sing in the pub, and then you end up in the stand singing whatever songs you're singing. Things happen on the pitch, things happen around. It's something that I think Burnley fans will absolutely adore the book.
Yeah, I couldn't recommend this book enough. Absolutely loved it this summer on 2 bus journeys. Got through it incredibly quick. So on that note, thank you very much, listeners, for listening to this episode or watching if you're on YouTube. Thanks to everyone who helps put the podcast together, especially to producer Matt, who we couldn't do this without. But thank you very much for listening. That has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.
The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.